God was at work, man, moving the chess pieces perfectly, coordinating this awkward experience for Peter, staying at a tanner's house, being brought to meet Cornelius, giving this vision to Cornelius, dispatching the people to the tanner's house, and then now all of those plot points are going to collide. This is Acts chapter 10, verse 26. So Peter has just entered Cornelius' house, and Cornelius worships Peter. That's awkward. Here's verse 26. But Peter lifted him up and said, "Stand up. I myself am also a man." While talking with him, he went in and found a large gathering of people. Peter said to them, "You know it's forbidden for a Jewish man to associate with or visit a foreigner, but God has shown me that I must not call any person impure or unclean. That's why I came without any objection when I was sent for. So, may I ask why you sent for me?" Let's talk about Peter's description of his own vision. In Galatians chapter 2, Paul, the guy whose story is about to really collide here in the book of Acts, Paul called Peter out because he had this tendency to be a little bit elitist in his adherence to Old Testament law. You heard in our previous devotions how he's perhaps braggadociously talking to God about how he's never eaten a single unclean thing in his whole life. And this is likely untrue, for one thing. It's probably an embellishment, but if it is true, then it becomes this misplaced source of self-righteousness for Peter, because guess what? That's not a requirement anymore. You got to have some sympathy for Peter because he lived at the transition between the covenants. And now it was difficult for Jewish people who had adhered to Old Testament dietary law, for example, their whole lives, and have watched Gentiles eating whatever they want, and now you're on equal standing before God. That really stinks. I've missed out on the crab buffet my whole life, and now I can eat it. And now that guy he's had a lot more crab than me. He has more crab than me, God. This is unfair. So you have to relate a little bit to what Peter's saying, why he struggled here. But this is something he would go back to later, wherein he would begin to eat only with certain Jewish crowds, even those of the circumcision party. And so Paul is going to call Peter out for this in Galatians chapter 2. This is Peter's best moment, though. He's been shown this vision of this sheet from heaven that shows all of these types of animals that previously were forbidden, both in the original covenant, the Adamic covenant with Adam, and then the reiteration of the covenant now with Noah, the Noahic covenant that did permit the consumption of certain meats that were ceremonially clean. And now in Acts, post-resurrection and ascension of Jesus, God is showing Peter that it's all clean, it's all good. Get up, kill, and eat. It was originally dietary in nature, but Peter is applying it in terms of his culture. This was a big deal for Peter to get out of his comfort zone and to be the only Jewish person in the room. It was even forbidden, not within God's law, but within the Talmud, within this addendum onto the Torah written by rabbis of the day. It was not a true rule. It was never anything that God required, but it was still uncomfortable for Peter to get rid of it. Do you have any of those same preferences and rituals and traditions that are not scripture? They're just precious to your heart? Do you believe that God may call you to set those aside for the cause of the gospel? Because if God does what we're asking him to do through the Redemption Church, it's going to lead to a lot of change. Okay, it's going to be a tough day when God gives us a building and you got to give up those comfortable electric leather recliners in exchange for a military-grade folding chair. Are you ready for God to take you out of your comfort zone? Because we're asking him to bring revival here, and he just might do it. And if he does, it's going to lead to change. Ready your heart for that. Ready your heart for letting go of things that are precious to you that are not biblical. God did it in Peter's life. He's going to do it in our lives, especially if he brings revival. I'm so proud of you, Redemption Church. Let's go continue living out the book of Acts today.